most of you guys have seen what Jimmy Fallon put out in the beginning of his show the other day. Now, if you haven't seen it, essentially it was this heartfelt sob story, we're all doomed speech about what happened in Charlottesville. He also decided that he was going to attack Trump for waiting 2 days. And he called out the right for being terrorists and so on and so forth. But I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I want you guys to see it for yourself so you can fully understand the delusion that is the left.
Even though The Tonight Show isn't a political show, it's my responsibility to stand up against intolerance and extremism as a human being.
All right, absolutely. Every human being should stand up against intolerance and racism and bigotry. Every human being should. Not every human being does. But you don't get to play favorites.
What happened over the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia was just disgusting. I was watching the news like everyone else, and you're seeing like Nazi flags and torches and white supremacists, and I was sick to my stomach.
Yeah, the news did a good job pointing out all the white supremacists, pointing out the Nazis, pointing out the guys with the Confederate flags. Yeah, they did. How good of a job did they do showing you the counter-protesters? Who actually was starting the fights? Who was fighting with the police? How good of a job did the news and the media do showing you what was fully going on? Or did they only show you one side?
My daughters are in the next room playing, and I'm thinking, how can I explain to them that there's so much hatred in this world? They're 2 years old and 4 years old. They don't know what hate is. They go to the playground and they have friends of all races and backgrounds. They just play and they laugh and they have fun.
Yeah, like 99.9% of the rest of the American population.
But as kids grow up, they need people to look up to show them what's right and good. They need parents and teachers, and they need leaders who appeal to the best in us.
They also need people who will tell them the truth, not just one side, but the entire truth, the whole truth. Yes, there were racists there. Yes, there were white supremacists there. Yes, there were Nazis there. But they weren't all the people that were there. They weren't the majority even of the people that were there.
The fact that it took the president 2 days to come out and clearly denounce racists and white supremacists is shameful.
Was it shameful when Obama went on stage in national television and did the complete opposite of what Trump did? Jumped on immediately after something happened before he even knew any of the facts whatsoever, but made a swift judgment? Like the countless times that he called police racists when they weren't? Or what about the time with the professor who got arrested for essentially assaulting a police officer? Remember when he jumped on stage then without knowing any of the facts and then he had to apologize later? Yeah. Why hold Trump to a different standard? You guys were perfectly fine with Obama just jumping the gun and putting out inaccurate statements. But when Trump takes a minute to make sure he gets all of the facts, all of a sudden he's a bad guy. And don't sit there and try to say that he took 2 days to make a statement. He put a statement as it was happening. He put out another statement. And then he took 2 days to put out a full statement.
And I think he finally spoke out because people everywhere stood up and said something. It's important for everyone, especially white people in this country, to speak out against this. Ignoring it is just as bad as supporting it.
Couple things with this one. First of all, why especially white people? Where was the especially black people when the riots were going on? Ferguson and Baltimore and all these other places. Where was the, hey, especially black people should stand up against this? Where was the especially black people when the black thugs in Chicago kidnapped the handicapped kid just because he was white? Or when black thugs were running around targeting white people just because they were white and beating them? Where was that? Ignoring it is just as bad as supporting it. So you support Antifa? You support Black Lives Matter? You support all of the riots that happened? You ignored it. Or you made light of it. But you sure didn't condemn it. You sure still haven't condemned it. You haven't condemned the attacks that happened on those white supremacists and on those Nazis and on those normal everyday people who were just trying to protest the removal of a statue. So you support all those people getting attacked. You support every single patriot rally, every single conservative rally, every single right-wing rally, call it whatever you want. You support them all getting attacked. You're a hypocrite.
And remember, there are people who have given their lives to make sure this kind of hate doesn't spread. They fought and died on the right side of history.
The funny thing about that is that people are fighting right now to be on the right side of history. And I'm going to give you a clue. It's not the communists and the anarchists and the black supremacists that are walking around and the white guilt idiots that are walking around beating up people they disagree with. It's not the brown shirt Nazis of today that is going to be on the right side of history. It's going to be the patriots who are standing up for freedom. It's going to be the conservatives that are standing up for free speech, not the liberal fascists of today's America.
One brave woman in Charlottesville, Heather Heyer, died standing up for what's right at the age of 32.
All right, I know this is going to be very unpopular with a lot of people, but she's not a hero. Okay, yes, it sucks that she died. And the guy who killed her and hurt all those other people, he's a douchebag. He belongs in jail. He deserves to rot in prison for what he did. But she's not a martyr. She didn't do anything spectacular. She's not a hero. She did not do anything brave. She went to stop people from having a right to speak. She went to stop people from having an opinion. I'm sorry, but just because she died, she does not deserve to be glorified. She's a victim, and we should feel bad about her being a victim. But that's as far as it goes.
I can't look at my beautiful, growing, curious daughters and say nothing when this kind of thing is happening. We all need to stand against what is wrong, acknowledge that racism exists, and stand up for what is right and civil and kind.
What makes me laugh is that liberals, anybody on the left, actually has the balls to sit there and say things like civil and kind. There is no civility coming from the left whatsoever. There's no kindness coming from the left whatsoever. There is nothing but hate, and there is nothing but division coming from the left. It's been seen all over the country. I just made a video about what happened in Seattle. Joey Gibson, the guy who hosted the event, gave the mic over to the liberals. He gave the mic over to Black Lives Matter activists and communists and socialists, all sorts of people, so they could speak. And they did nothing but hate. There was no positivity. Nothing positive came from them at all. That's, again, the reality of the country that we are currently in.
And to show the next generation that we haven't forgotten how hard people have fought for human rights. We cannot do this. We can't go backward. We can't go backward.
Yeah, that's the end of it. And look how he ends it with. We can't forget the people who fought so hard for civil rights. What are the conservatives doing right now? Conservatives are fighting for the right to speak. Conservatives are fighting for the right to exist. Conservatives are currently fighting for the ability to be able to hold a rally, to hold an event, to hold a protest, like liberals have been doing since the 60s, peacefully. The people in Charlottesville had a permit. It was a permitted march. The police should have done every single thing they could do to keep them safe. They failed. They failed miserably. Now, if people go out and have a march or have a rally without a permit, all right, it's on them. You know, what happens, happens. But when it is a permitted march, there is no excuse for the violence. There is no excuse for the failure that caused all of the events in Charlottesville to happen. The police could have prevented that girl's death. The police could have prevented the other people who were injured. The police could have even prevented anybody from getting arrested if they would have just done what was right and not what their bosses told them to do. Because the local government, they made their opinion very clear. We hate the alt-right. Screw the white nationalists. They deserve what they get. So we already know where it came from. Those of us who've been doing this job, who've been covering these events, we know what happens. It's not the police officer's fault when things like this happen. It's the ones in charge, giving the orders, telling them to stand down, which is exactly what happened in Charlottesville. The police were told to stand down. They were given horrible orders. That's the reality, again, of the situation. It's not what the media is telling you. It's not what the politicians are telling you. Trump told you, and you'll be seeing that later. But it's time for people to wake up. It's time for people to start rejoining reality and stop believing this liberal crap. Because I'll guarantee you that the thousands, I'm not going to say millions, but the thousands of people that watched Jimmy Fallon's show saw that and said, oh, yeah, you're totally right. He was wrong. 110% wrong. And this kind of misleading propaganda needs to stop. There needs to be some integrity and some truth brought back into our media. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, you are supposed to stand for truth. As a human being, truth is what matters. Stop your lies, stop your misinformation, stop your fake news, stop your crap.
Free thought for free people.